The Glavewalker, a Titan exclusive build that one-shots up to 7 resil without requiring anything special. You just use the glaive as you always would. I am so glad I saved this one-shot glaive as the last one in the series too, because it just got so much better with the ammo increase patch for glaives this week. We'll get into why, but it really did just line up perfectly. So how does it work? The key is the Path of Burning Steps. Path of Burning Steps is a pair of exotic leg armor that came hot on the heels of Stasis. But after Stasis was toned down, it feels like it kind of sunk into the back of everyone's vaults. This thing does more than combat Stasis though. It also acts like a Warlock Empowering Rift on wheels for solar weapons. So what you probably remember is that Path of Burning Steps makes you harder to freeze from Stasis, there's no penalty for busting out, and when you do bust out, it does a 9-meter explosion that does 105 damage to enemies. But we're focusing on the part that gives you a buff with your solar kills called Firewalker. Firewalker stacks up to 3 times, and on the initial activation gives you a 15% weapon damage buff for 10 seconds. Now here's where it gets a little tricky and why it just got a lot better this week. Firewalker procs kind of at random. It will occasionally proc on the first kill, usually on the second, and in rare occasions it will take up to 3 kills before it procs. I think this is why a lot of people just take it off, because they aren't really sure what it's doing. But once you learn how this works and just start playing as normal, it can become really deadly, so stay with me. So to get our one-shot glaive with Firewalker, we take our solar glaive, Lubrae's Ruin, and we put the most popular glaive damage perk on, Unstoppable Force. Unstoppable Force gives us a 30% damage boost for up to 4 seconds when just using the glaive as normal and blocking damage. So adding it all together, we've got the base 131 damage for the glaive shot, Unstoppable Force giving us a 30% buff, and then Firewalker giving us a 15% buff, totaling to 195 damage a shot. We're one-shotting up to 7 resil. So here's our loop with that. You get a kill with the glaive just as normal, now you've got shield energy for Unstoppable Force, and you've got Firewalker ×1. For the next encounter, you just shield the damage and then take your shot, 195 damage. It's actually super easy because you're just playing as normal. You're not doing anything special. But let's circle back to the tricky part, because Firewalker doesn't always proc on the first shot. In fact, it usually doesn't. So before the ammo patch, I found that I was just running out of ammo by the time Firewalker would actually proc. To compensate for this, and you don't have to do this anymore, I just want to show you how complicated it was before this patch. I would use a weapon with osmosis, like Traveler's Chosen, throw a grenade, and then use that weapon which had solar damage until I got Firewalker going, and then switch to my glaive. This just didn't flow very well, and you're jumping through a whole bunch of hoops to do it. Now though, after the patch that came with Solstice, you pick up 2 glaive ammo for every special brick in PvP. So you have all the time and ammo you need to proc Firewalker casually. Just play as normal, and if you get a streak going, you can really start to rack up the one-shots. This is becoming my favorite way to one-shot with the glaive, especially on a Titan. Mainly because you just play the glaive as it's meant to be played, and that's it. There are a few other ways to stack up Unstoppable Force to get the same 7 resil one-shots, and I'll just go over a few of those quickly, but this is still my favorite way. If you're on a Warlock, you could use a Well and get that 15% damage buff on top of Unstoppable Force, but that limits you to a stationary position, and I just don't like using the glaive that way. You could use Lumina with Boots of the Assembler to make it a mobile 10 seconds with the Blessing buff, but now you're having to rely on teammates nearby, and you have to focus on 2 aspects of your playstyle, the hand cannon and then the glaive, and it's just a few more hoops to jump through. Now if you're sticking to Titan, you can stack it with Inertia Override on Code of the Missile for the same 15% buff. This one's only 6 seconds long though, so you don't have quite as much time to use the Firewalker buff, but it is more consistent because you know that you'll have the buff every time you slide over some ammo. Slick, a fellow Destiny YouTuber streamer, is big on this method, and it's definitely one to keep an eye out for. Just remember that it lasts only about half the time and it relies on your opponent dropping ammo. Overall, I still really like the Glaive Walker the best for Titans. You still get your healing nade and all the strong stuff that comes with Solar 3.0. You can activate it on any kind of solar kill, ability or weapon, and overall it just flows really seamlessly. If you're looking for stronger Warlock or Hunter versions, I highly recommend you check out the YEET Machine or the Gunpowder Glaive videos I just put out. Let me know which one worked out best for you, and be sure to sub here to the channel to get more great builds like this. Until next time, GG.